my passion and commitment dealing with urban communities, especially old industrial areas. And to me, that is the area that we have to look at, because it's all part and parcel of what we're trying to accomplish, is rebuilding our great country. And to look at our great country as an asset to the world and not as a liability. I think for years, last century, we were the greatest asset. We helped the world. And today, we view the world, I believe, in a negative way. We think everybody hates America. They don't. And everybody wants to take our jobs. They don't. What they want to do is they want to someday move here and want to become part of this great American diversity. And there's a great passion that we have for this country. Such a young country. When you go to the other world, parts of the world, they're so old, and what we've accomplished in such a short period of time. And we have to build confidence back in America. It's confidence. We have to have confidence. And one region is going to bring more and more confidence back with your elected officials, your private sector, and not-for-profit all working together. So it's a great opportunity to meet many people who have made a difference here. I am impressed by the work of One Region, and its mission is a common agenda for the region. And believe me, this type of regional collaboration is not typical in our nation. This is really unique and different, so you're forging ahead. And impressive, you have a representative of higher education here, and that to me is, again, you include everybody in this one region concept. I spent 22 years as a mayor, 10 years as a chief prosecutor of Cook County, 8 years as state senator in Springfield, and 2 years as a member of the Illinois Constitutional Convention. I enjoyed my public service. I love public service. I enjoyed every minute of it. I thought it was a great challenge for me. Individually, I always kept a passion and commitment about my position. And I was a public servant. I wasn't a Democrat or Republican. I believed as a Democrat, but I was a public servant first and foremost. I represented all the people, not a few people. I didn't represent my base. I always wanted to expand my base, and I firmly believed in that. And so I believe that we have to look at America as always an expanding base, and not just in a political position that my base is here. I don't have to do anything for anyone else. So everybody asks me, what is life after being mayor? And I always tell them that the lessons that I learned both as mayor and now as someone outside of government who still works with cities in metropolitan areas around the world, what I believe the future holds for America and the world. First and most importantly, I love being a public servant. I learned there's exciting life outside of City Hall. And like anything else, I knew that I was going to leave mayor of the city of Chicago. People ask me why. After a while, you can achieve many things. The day you take it for granted, that's the day you have to leave. I felt the challenge wasn't there. I thought it was a time for someone to take that challenge, and the people decide that. And so that's why I left public service. Now I'm executive chairman of TUR Partners, which my son, who graduated from the University of Chicago, is my partner. I work for him. He graduated from the university business school, went into the military as a private, became an airborne psych ops specialist, was there for 5 years. He went to Afghanistan. He did the job that was necessary on behalf of our country. At the same time, he was proud to serve our great country. Now we work in Russia and China and the United States and parts of the world in regards to representing American business overseas and foreign businesses into our country, which is really important, as well as sustainability, dealing with American and world metro areas in the world on sustainability. I'm of counsel for a law firm, Catton Law Firm, which I'm very proud of as an attorney. I'm a member of the J.P. Morgan International Advisory Council. I'm chair of the Global City Initiative. It's a partnership between J.P. Morgan and Brookings to help American cities and regions to look at the world as an asset, to invest here in America by foreign investments, and to be able to compete on manufacturing, mid-sized and large businesses in the world. I've joined the Coca-Cola board, which I'm very proud of. It has global presence throughout the world. Their sustainability program dealing with water is unparalleled, and to me, to represent a great American company. I'm a distinguished senior fellow at Harris School of Public Policy, University of Chicago, which I'm very proud of. But most importantly, as Mayor Karen pointed out, the partnership between University of Chicago and City of Gary. And people say, why City of Gary? For years, we have a summer home up right outside of Michigan City. So every time I drove with my grandfather, we would stop at City Hall of Gary. Because as a young man, he said, I worked as a sheet metal worker on the dome of Gary City Hall. And I received wages on that. And we point that out every time we went through Gary, we had to stop. He was very proud of that. Because at that time, you know, he's a great tradesman. He wanted to make sure that I realized that he had to travel all the way to Gary to provide living for his family as well. And so, as the mayor pointed out, I had the opportunity of meeting her at City Hall and then, of course, at the university. And to me, there is when you meet all the university students, undergraduate and graduate, you know that higher education, you should know that. We should have more confidence in our children, what is happening in our universities. I know there's always issues, but we have another great generation. They're going to do better things that I did or you did or anybody else. These are your children, my grandchildren. We have to have the confidence that the next generation will and can achieve what we have done as a country, and they're going to do better not only for our country but for the world. And from my viewpoint, in dealing with University of Chicago students, I couldn't ask for more dedicated, more committed young people. And they come from all over the country and all over the world in this class. And you should hear how they talk about the future. And again, this is an example of what we want in America. The urban policy team that I put together, our students are using, I'll give you an example. Every city, large city, is always challenged, or industrial areas, abandoned buildings. If you look at an abandoned building, it's really a liability for the city. The cost of keeping an abandoned building is enormous. And so that's really an issue. The students have put together, we have different groups working with the City of Gary, but the students use an innovative model dealing with phones application to create inventory of these buildings. They drive around, it's all adapted through the phone system. They're tech people, and they're doing things it would take the city years and years of doing it. With the help of City of Gary staff and other volunteers, they have already surveyed more than 10,000 properties. I think of that, 10,000 properties will complete this survey this fall. Now that alone, again, is an example of how you use outside people to help assist you, whether it's non-for-profit or for-profit organizations. The inventory is being mapped, and then maps will be used to make recommendations for demolition and deconstruction program that will create jobs. Deconstruction program and recycling will create jobs. Also, university students are pioneering neighborhood cleanup program strategy known as 5x5, which I'm going to be out there Saturday. They made sure I'm going to be out there, which brings together the City of Gary and the Gary residents. And this is your home. This is your block. You have responsibility to clean it up with us. Again, that's creating this pride. Let's get back pride in our community. Doesn't matter who you are, let's get it back. As well as 4 neighborhoods have been cleaned up this summer. I want to congratulate everybody who's volunteered, the community, the students, and everyone, and the city staff. Their illegal dump sites, cleaning up, potholes have been repaired, vacant buildings have been boarded up. This is how you can build pride and bring change to urban communities. And you have to have change. Change is good. You don't live in the past. Respect the present. You always live in the future. Our students are also researching and developing recommendations for Gary on other issues. Best practices in municipal budgeting, untapped state and federal funding opportunities. Is it going to be is it going to help the city, or is it so bureaucratic it doesn't help the city? Ideas for pre-K, after-school programs, and suggestions developing the Broadway corridor. Soon we will seek non-for-profit funds, both in Indiana and around the country, to create some other various interesting programs to really help Gary. I am encouraged by the students. I sincerely believe that one day Gary can come back from being a forgotten city, but it's not forgotten anymore, and play a very vital role in revitalization in Northwest Indiana. You cannot have one section not doing well. It all has to work together. You can't isolate things in this day and age, so that's why it's important for me. When I first became mayor in 1989, there was a belief that the best days of cities or America were behind us, and that the job of mayor was to manage the decline. Well, that was wrong then. It's even wrong now. In today's highly competitive global economy, which we are in, a mayor must have a vision for the future. Build partnerships. I am very pro-business. I'm telling you that. I'm very pro-business. Building partnerships with business leaders and non-for-profits. And yes, crossing political lines. It doesn't matter what political party they're in. To me, it doesn't matter. Can we work together? And work with others in the metro region to advance that vision. And from my viewpoint, since retiring from City Hall, I have traveled often to cities and metropolitan areas here in this country, especially Asia. I spent about 2 months almost in China. And I'm constantly amazed by the growth of the cities in the metro regions. This trend is not just towards urbanization, it's towards mass urbanization. It's encouraging outside the United States, primarily in developing nations, where megacities are being built with populations of 10, 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50 million people. The United Nations predicts there will be 37 megacities by 2025 or earlier, and 34 of them will be outside the United States. By 2025, Shanghai's population is projected to grow 40%, almost to 30 million people. Delhi, Beijing, and Shenzhen could have populations of 33, 23, 16 million people or more. These metro regions, with support from their federal governments, are bending over backwards to capitalize on their assets. They invest in infrastructure, attract the world's best people, businesses, job, tourism, and investments, and that's what they're doing. The only way the United States and regions like this will be able to compete if we think more regionally. We have to all work together. It doesn't matter what state you're in. If you're in a region, Chicago has to work with Indiana. Indiana has to work with Michigan. Chicago has to work with Wisconsin. We have to work with Peoria. It doesn't matter. It's one region. And that's what the world views us as, a region. They don't know about your states and cities. They want to say, are you all working together? With one region, this initiative, Northwest Indiana region is already a way ahead of most regions in America. We must be willing to work with our neighbors, I point out, across political boundaries, across multi-state lines, to protect and invest in and think creatively to build a region's most important assets. In Northwest Indiana, I believe this means getting more students educated in Indiana's top universities and colleges. And you have them here in Indiana. Should be very proud of that. And that's a great asset. Ramping up the workforce training for jobs of the future. So this region can become an advanced manufacturing corridor. I talk a technology center. Enhance its global competitiveness. There's an area called Greenville-Spartanburg Corridor in South Carolina. Last year, I was in China for a number of weeks. I went across a delegation who spends 2 to 3 weeks from Greenville-Spartanburg corridor in South Carolina, encouraging investments overseas into their area with Clemson University of South Carolina. They take universities, they take business, and all of them working together. The same thing as Lexington and Louisville region, the same thing was happening. And so you have the concept, you're working at it, and to me, that is the future of regions. Thirdly, continuing to invest in transportation, as your congressman pointed out. Because some way you have to be able to move people in the South Shore all the way to Chicago, and Chicago all the way back here. Because many people from Chicago work here. And someone said, why do we have such a closeness between Chicago and Gary? When I grew up, I grew up right next to the Chicago stockyards. So all the working people, many of their families worked here in the steel industry, manufacturing. Many people from Indiana worked in the stockyards, worked in manufacturing, or worked downtown. So there's a closeness, both ethnically and racially, between Chicago and Northwest Indiana, to be very frank. And many people who lived in Chicago, grew up, have moved to Indiana. And so vice versa, many young people, as Pete talks about, have moved to Chicago. So there's a closeness there, and we have to really work together. In this 21st century, regions have to move people, goods and services, and information efficiently, and cheaply will succeed. Northwest Indiana has that advantage. You have rail, you have truck, you have the Gary, Chicago Airport, which you're expanding. So you have the assets, and now you have to figure out how you do that. Also, you have to really preserve and protect the Great Lakes. That, to me, is our drinking water. That is what we talk about in the Great Lakes area. Everybody else needs water. They talk about oil and they talk about gas. Water will be the greatest asset that anyone has, and advanced manufacturing does need water. And you need water to be used as well as protect the environment after they use it, and how well we do that. Work with regional leaders from your neighborhood states, as I pointed out, Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois. You have to work with everybody. You can't say we're just here and everybody else is isolated. And it's important to work with Indiana agricultural sector. For instance, I have been visiting parts of China and parts of Russia. They all talk about agriculture, and they look at the United States as the most advanced agricultural schools, our state schools. It's amazing, the Big Ten state schools, agricultural departments, and how well we exporting our younger people to create jobs here in America and overseas. And that's what they're looking for. They want to invest in this because what they need is good quality food. I'll be very frank. And so from my viewpoint, there's many, many ways of doing that. I work with very closely with the Paulson Institute. Hank Paulson, the former Secretary of Treasury under George W. Bush. And he has a think tank at the University of Chicago. We had 20 mayors in from Shanghai, from Beijing, for a week at the University, New York, and Philadelphia, see and work with public officials and see what we're doing, how well. When I was there on a trip recently on behalf of the Hank Paulson Institute, I went to the Nanhai Country Village. It's a small community out of Shanghai. And what it is urban sprawl. And they took about a couple thousand acres and made it a farming community. Farming community, organic farming. They talked about all types of animals, all types of food that we need and drink and eat, and how sustainability that will be to basically serve the 40 million people in Shanghai. And so what they're doing is they're creating jobs there. At the same time, they're becoming self-sufficient in regards to what they need to eat. And what the expertise has to come from is your universities right here. It's amazing. All over the Midwest, because we know more about agriculture. And to me, that is a great example. A great example of a regional redevelopment model is Bilbao, Spain. And this was a northern part of Spain. It's a river city. And it was an industrial area closed down, and what are they going to do with it? Someone came with a great idea, the Guggenheim Museum going there. And today, hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent in rebuilding the city as basically a tourist attraction with the Guggenheim Museum. And to me, you have to always look at cities and always willing to change and see something that no one else sees. And because Gary is located right on this greatest lake, Lake Michigan. And what an asset. And you have to see that. And if you don't see it, then you'll never get it. And to me, if you look at what we have done with our development in and around Lake Michigan and what it means to all of us, that is the key of the future. And you know that here all through Indiana as well as the Great Lakes. Those industries had hard times. Our shipping, our iron and steel business, we know that, and there's competition around the world. And so I grew up next to the stockyards. All my neighbors worked there, and all their sons and daughters went in the trades. And the stockyards was moving in 1950 because they never changed. The industries never changed. And that was because of lack of real leadership. And so what has happened to Bilbao, between 1975 and 1995, they lost 60,000 jobs, almost half the total employment. And the city of Bilbao lost 20% of the population. Beginning in 1990, government and the private sector created this great region in a revitalization. And they focused on urban development, environmental restoration, sustainability, a new cultural identity, and formation of a knowledge-based sector, which we have here with your universities. The leaders designated 4 opportunity zones for redevelopment, with one most iconic and most important zones allowed the redevelopment of the former industrial land along the riverfront into Frank Gehry design of the Guggenheim Museum, a new metro system to get visitors there. And everybody wants to go to the Guggenheim Museum. Today, the museum attracts 1 million visitors per year from around the world. The plan also called for an expanded investment in the region from some of the top businesses that were already located in Bilbao when the economic decline began, including banks, energy companies, media companies, and universities. There's also a new major conference and expo center, a new green belt around the region. To further connect Bilbao, the world, they invested in the airport expansion, a new port bringing cruise ships to the region. Every project is financed differently. The key to the region's success is that Bilbao's strategy plan is managed, implemented by 2 public-private partnerships that keep it on track and in budget. In short time that I've left, I'd like to close with a few other comments in regards to emphasizing what we have to do. First, if U.S. cities and metro regions are to succeed, these units of government must collaborate, which you're doing here with each other and with the private sector. You need private businesses and not-for-profits to become part and parcel of the commitment. When cities partner with each other and with the private sector and with regions and leaders, especially in the 21st century, their cauldrons of innovation attract global attention and global investments. And the great success of Chicago has been the business community. They're the ones who stand shoulder to shoulder with me on any issue when I was mayor for 22 years, and I deeply appreciate that. The top models of thriving regions in the country and around the world have been premised upon partnerships and thinking outside the box. Second, we must remember that the environment is a crucial long-term asset. It is the key. Chicago has shown the country and the world that cities can play a crucial role in sustainability development. That means striking a comfortable balance between a strong economy and a healthy respect for the importance of our natural resources. It isn't, I'm right and you're wrong on these issues. It's a balance in how do we get there. As mayor of Chicago, I use the preservation and enhancement of green assets, the lakefront open space, bike trails, rooftop gardens, outdoor recreation, as economic assets for this city. It wasn't something just to look at. It's something that's really helping the environment. Northwest Indiana region has some of the nation's most valuable natural resources. And that is an asset, and that should be invested in for the long-term commitment. I firmly believe that cities and regions who take this approach will win over the long term, and that's why sustainability development has continued to be one of my passions even after leaving office. And I've done a lot of work in China, and they forgot, they just like Europe, United States, industrialization was putting people to work. They basically avoided disrespect to the land, the air, and the water. And now that's the biggest issue, the quality of land, the quality of air, and the quality of water, and they're fighting that. I recently announced the Sustainability Exchange, a pioneer approach towards helping cities, medium-sized and smaller cities, in sustainability. Because every one of the mayors, someone comes up with a great idea, invest in this clean technology, you're going to do this, and if they invest in it, and a year later, it's obsolete. And so that's why you have to be so careful in dealing with sustainability. The basic logic is that the cities around the world have the similar challenges, making our infrastructure more efficient, reliable, reducing operating costs, and protecting the environment. Every city is and should be thinking about creating a path to a cleaner, more sustainable future, and the cities should not have to face the formal challenge alone. It can't be a city. It has to be all the cities working together on the same issue. And to me, what we do is with the exchanges help urban leaders identify projects. And the project is not just in the city, but in the region. And then you identify the projects. How do you develop these projects? How are you going to raise capital? My theory is, I believe in private money. I think the problems in the federal government, state, and even local governments, when you talk about raising taxes, you're going to just raise taxes. It's a very difficult challenge. Some way, the private sector in your pension funds all over America have money. So why can't we use that money? They can get a decent profit, and they put people to work, and they keep their company going, and basically improve the quality of life for residents. And so what we do is look at raising capital. How do you get the work done? How do you document the results? And how do we protect everyone? We're focusing on energy efficiency, water, waste management, and public transportation. And finally, you cannot have a conversation about the future of U.S. cities and regions without mentioning the federal government. And I told the mayor I'm going to be very kind to the federal government. But it isn't anybody dealing with the federal government. It isn't President Obama, it isn't President Bush. It's the laws and rules and regulations we have formulated over years that deal with it. You can talk to a police department. You can talk to education. You can talk to a business. You can talk to a mayor about grants. How difficult are universities? How difficult it is to access. And that's what the problem is. And we have to look at it completely different. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a great president. Depression and war. He had unique powers. Since then, we've taken the power away from the executive branch. We've taken the power away. We've taken the power away. And so we move it into the bureaucracy. And you elect a president, and you think that person can do many things, but you moved everything into bureaucracy. And the bureaucracy today on Obamacare, guess who's writing the rules and regulations? The bureaucracy. And so how can you give this back to the bureaucracy to write the rules and regulations without the participation of the private sector or the non-for-profit sector? Why shouldn't they participate in the rules and regulations? Who says this rule regulation is going to be here forever? And what is the cost of the regulation? What is the cost of it? And I'm not picking on Obamacare, but anything, the Dodd-Frank bill, all these things they pass with good intentions. People support it. What is the result? And from my belief is that in the long term, someone has to take responsibility for the federal government to meet the challenges of today. And you need cooperation. Cities should not look like when they go to Washington, no one's going to hear them except your congressman. No one in the bureaucracy is going to listen to you. And so they work for us. We pay their salaries. They should respond to the schools, to the universities, to the cities. They should respond dealing with the South Shore Railroad. They should have the vision of what America should be. But the vision is coming from the mayors and the business community about America. It is not coming from Washington, D.C. That is amazing. And so what we know now, if the mayors and the governors and all the local officials want to work with the world, we view the world as an asset. We want investments from the world to come here, Northwest Indiana. The government may argue with China and Russia and Brazil and the rest of the world, but what is wrong with them investing in America and creating jobs and keeping our factories and their family-run businesses open? We should encourage that because family-run businesses, after third generation, mostly closed down, and they're good companies. And so from my viewpoint, America's cities and regions are the real thinkers. They're the creative people. They're seeing the world differently, and the world has to be viewed differently with vision, determination, and partnership, and discipline that you have in Northwest Indiana in the one region. And from my viewpoint, that is the future of America. America is such a young country in the things we've accomplished in helping the world, and now we can help ourselves. There's nothing wrong with helping America. We've helped the world. We have to view the world as an asset and not as an enemy. And so I view what you're doing here is visionary. I compliment you, all of you, and the willingness to take the challenge, because what you're saying is you believe in your children in another generation, that you want to build a better way of life here in the region, not only for Northwest Indiana, but for America. Thank you very much.